around with another detailed discussion on GST implication on transportation of goods and passengers. And I believe knowledge shared today will be really helpful and meaningful to all our professionals. So I can see that people have started joining. Good evening, Manmohan Kumar ji. I hope everything is good at your end. So that's really a good news that people have already started joining. So it tells that professionals and chartereds are really keen for learning and upgrading themselves each and every day. And on the other end, it motivates us as well to keep driving us to try our best to keep you updated and improve each and every day at what we do. Good evening, Abhishek ji. Good evening, Vijay Kumar ji. Yes, everything is fine at our end as well. So I request all of you to be patient for a moment or so, because let's wait for our other friends to join as well, because at Optotax, as you all know, we are a family of chartereds from all over India who are coming together for mutual empowerment. So yes, so we consistently keep organizing webinars on various hot and important topics, covering each and every important aspects relating to them. So if you also want to dive deep into these interesting topics, they'll be easily available on our Optotax YouTube channel. So you can go and watch it anytime as per your convenience. If you like it, please press the like button, and also you can subscribe it, because I know you don't want to miss our regular and knowledgeable updates. And now beginning with our today's session, which is brought to you by Optotax, which most of our professionals are already using. But for those who are new in the family, let me just brief it about it to all of you. We are a technology and knowledge platform. And in our journey, we have always tried to make your GST compliance seamless and hassle-free. It has been engineered for your empowerment and benefit. Optotax now is India's #1 and biggest GST platform. We have become a family of 50,000 plus tax professionals who trust Optotax for their 1 million plus clients. So you can give it a try, and it is totally free and cost efficient. So what are you waiting for? Go and give it a try. And now coming back to today's topic, which talks about impact of GST on various sectors, it's decoding GST. And today we have CA 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐬𝐏𝐚𝐬𝐬 ji from Voice of CA with us. Voice of CA has been actively working for betterment of CA profession. So we welcome you, Neha ji, and stage is yours. You can please enlighten us with your valuable remarks.
Thank you so much, Rohit. I am hoping to have a great session today, because GTA is something of a nuance to me as well. Good evening and namaste to our guest of honor. Our faculty would be joining us shortly, and all the participants here, ICAI Neha Agarwal, would like to welcome you all on behalf of Voice of CA. Telling about Voice of CA, it's an NGO based in Delhi, which has been working towards professional betterment since 2009 through its mailers, WhatsApps, seminars, and webinars. Today, we are covering the sector of transportation of goods and passengers, including GTA, just as Rohit just enlightened you. I personally feel it is a very complicated topic that sometimes I even lose track on whether it is actually under GST or not. Taxable? Really? I am absolutely sure our guest of honor and our learned speaker for today will be able to clear all my doubts as well as the doubts of the participants. Going forward, I would quickly like to introduce our guest of honor for today. I am very fortunate to introduce him. Ashok Batra sir is our guest of honor. He is not just my guru or your guru. He is the GST guru of the nation. With more than 40 years of experience, he has excellent academic credentials and immense exposure in taxation, including Delhi VAT and GST. He has been authoring articles and books on indirect tax since 2004, which is even more than a decade. He has addressed at least 1,500 seminars, webinars, and on behalf of Voice of CA and Optotax, we welcome you, sir. I would now request you to please enlighten us with your words of wisdom, sir.
Thank you, Neha, for the nice introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank both Optotax and Voice of CA for providing me this opportunity, wherein I can share my views on a very interesting topic of transport of goods by road. Friends, if you look at this category of service, which is being taxed in the hands of goods transport agency, initially it was introduced somewhere in 1997. though the service tax was introduced on 1st July 1994, this service was introduced in 1997. But because of certain technical issues, it was taken back in 1998 from the day of inception itself. Then came 1st January 2005, when it was being reintroduced. And since then, it has been continued. If you look at this practical aspect of it, then transportation of goods and transportation of passengers by road is very, very important so far as this country is concerned, because 65% of the transportation of material is being done through road, whereas 80% transportation of passenger is through by road. And if you look at the service tax law and GST law, by and large, it is paramateria. So there is a consistency in the approach. There are changes. I'll certainly come to those changes also, but they are not very significant. I'll just give you the background of this topic, because ultimately it is the speaker who has to deliberate upon it. But friends, let us understand, in service tax also, transportation of goods by road was exempted. And in GST also, transportation of goods by road is exempted. Then question comes, if transportation of goods by road is exempted, then what are we gathered here? Why are we discussing this? But it is taxable. There are two exceptions, courier agency and GTA. If this transportation of goods by road is being provided either by the courier agency or it is being provided by goods transport agency, then certainly it is subject to tax. Goods transport agency has been defined in service tax and in GST absolutely in the same manner. Goods transport agency means any person who is engaged into the transportation of goods by road and issues a consignment note. This and issues a consignment note is very, very important. Unless otherwise you don't satisfy these two conditions, you are not being covered in GTA, then you are not liable to discharge the liability, because transportation of goods by road is exempted. We have seen a lot more litigation on this issue. Now this law is very clear. Most of the professionals who are dealing in indirect taxes and the courts have already made it clear there's a difference between GTA and GTO. GTO means goods transport operator and GTA means goods transport agency. As I told you, goods transport agency is the one who issues a consignment note, and unless otherwise you don't issue a consignment note, you cannot be made subject to tax under GST. This GST liability is not on the provider of service, which is normally the case. In service tax also and in GST also, the government has got a power to specify the person who is liable to discharge the liability. And so far as goods transport agency is concerned, it was under reverse charge in service tax as well as under GST in most of the situation. If I tell you in summarily manner without going into the technicalities, then you can understand if the transporter is providing a service to the government or an individual who is not being covered under the Factories Act, then only he is liable to pay tax under forward charge. There has been an exemption provided in the law in case you are engaged into the supply of services, the tax liability of which is liable to be discharged under reverse charge by the recipient. Then you need not get yourself registered irrespective of your turnover. Assuming my turnover is 10 crore, I am not liable to be registered. If I am providing services to the recipient who are liable to discharge the liability under GTA. But so far as GTA recipient is concerned, so far as recipient is concerned, I am repeating because there was a mull in my voice. So far as recipient is concerned, even if he is availing the services of 100 rupees from GTA and providing all services which are not subject to GST or service tax, he has to seek registration. So registration by
Hello.
the recipient is in respect of the turnover. Now,
Hello.
under GST, I can see Vikas Golchha, who is the speaker of the day, is perhaps joining us. Anyway, I'll continue for another 4 or 5 minutes and then he will take the charge. So I was telling you, so far as recipient is concerned, he has to get himself registered. Under service tax, there was no option given to the transporter wherein he can discharge the liability under forward charge. But in GST, initially this option was not there, but somewhere in 2018, this option is being given. And now GTA can even provide the services at higher rate of tax 12% under forward charge also. If you are providing services and the service is liable to be paid by the recipient, either the GTA is charging tax at 5% or 12%, it does not make a difference. Whatever tax is being paid by the recipient, he is entitled to claim the credit of the same if he satisfies other parameters. So subject to satisfaction of the conditions laid down in section 16 of CGST Act, which deals with the ITC, you are eligible for the credit. Either the tax has been paid at a concessional rate of 5% or 12%. Then there have been specified exemptions being given with respect to specified goods. These exemptions have been slightly different in GST law. But then there are exemptions. Then two exemptions which are common in service tax and in GST. That is, in case I am transporting my goods and the value of consignment is less than 750, and that 750 is with respect to the recipient. If you are issuing more than 2 GR in the name of one recipient, then the value will be aggregated for the purpose of exemption. Another exemption is with regard to the material where the consignment or the note is being issued and you're taking the full lorry, and that exemption is up to 1,500. So with this background, I'll say it is a very interesting topic, and there is a huge litigation because the tax has to be paid by the recipient, but because of certain circumstances, if supplier has paid, what will happen? I leave all these questions to the speaker of the day. Let him handle these questions, and I am here. I will listen to him, and in the meanwhile, if there are any queries, I, along with Mr. Vikas, who is the speaker, will try to answer the queries of the participant to the best of our knowledge and ability. With this, I hand over the mic to Neha to introduce the speaker and ask him to start his deliberation. Or in case anybody wants to ask me any question before he takes the charge, absolutely no problem. I am willing to answer any question.
In case any questions are there from the participants, they can write them in the chat box. Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening introduction, where the participants have become more and more interested in what our speaker for today, Vikas Golchha ji, has to say. Thank you so much, sir. I would now hand over the mic to CA Rohit. Thanks.
Thank you so much. First of all, CA Ashok sir. It was really a nice introduction by yourself. And obviously, thank you so much, Neha, for handing it over to me. As I can see that there are some of the questions from our professionals, and Ashok sir, I would also like to add one question, which I was thinking, like you mentioned, like services from transportation of road are exempt, but there are two exceptions like courier agency and GTA. So I just want to know, how do we differentiate between how do we assign someone as this is a courier agency or this is a GTA? How do we differentiate between among these two?
As I told you, GTA has been defined in the Act, which says goods transport agency means any person who is engaged into the transportation of goods by road and issue the consignment note. In the case of courier agency, they are from one place to another, time-sensitive document and goods, they deal in both. And they don't issue the consignment note, they give a note. They don't issue a consignment note, then they can transport those goods and documents through any mode of transportation. Whereas in the case of GTA, it has to be done only by the road. If it is a multi-transport of the goods, then it will not be covered under GTA.
Okay.
Is it okay, Rohit? We have two questions in the chat box. Vikas sir, can we please take those two questions as well?
My voice is audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
because it is perfect.
Very good evening, Ashok sir. Sorry for the delay on my part.
Doesn't matter, you are welcome.
You're most welcome, sir. Rohit, can we take the two questions as well, or should we start with the session?
I guess let me come up with the introductory part for CA Vikas Golchha sir, and then we can take up the questions in the single stretch. Will that be okay?
Absolutely, whatever you feel comfortable. Thank you.
Okay, so due to some technical glitches, I guess Vikas sir was late in joining, but there I durust hai. So it's time for introductory part. So as you all know, CA Vikas Golchha ji is a chartered accountant and company secretary, and also is currently a partner in a partnership firm SC Mahadur and Co. Chartered Accountants, and practicing in the field of indirect taxes from last 8 years. He has completed several certification courses conducted by ICAI, including that of GST. He is empaneled national faculty of GST with Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and is empaneled faculty on GST at National Academy of Indirect Taxes and Customs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, to train GST officers of Chhattisgarh. He has addressed 300 plus seminars and webinars on GST, in which he has trained more than 20,000 participants on various topics of GST all over India. He also possesses expertise in handling litigation on GST and service tax matters, and has authored books on GST as well. So this is our great pleasure to have such a profound and dynamic personality like Vikas ji with us today. Me and obviously all of our viewers are really looking forward for your kind deliberation, as we all know till now that you bring such an expertise and knowledge with you. So I'll not take much more time of our participants, and I'll just hand it over to you, because this topic is really very interesting and we have already started receiving questions. So handing it over to you. So Vikas sir.
Okay. Very good evening, Ashok sir. Very good evening, all the participants, and thankful to Optotax and the VOCA to organizing such event. So I will be deliberating on GTA Transport Agency. Let's start with some basic. My screen is visible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay,
Visible.
my presentation is visible, huh? Right. So first of all, good transport agency is always a serving service tax era. The law has been taken from service tax as it is. So major part of that is service tax only, but few changes has been done in GST. We will discussing in our presentation. First of all, what is GTA? We have to understand. So GTA has been defined in the notification itself. It is 12/2017. That GTA means any person who provided services in relation to transport of goods by road and issue a consignment note by whatever name called. So two basic conditions comes out with this definition. First, transportation of goods by road, and second, the issue of consignment note. So issue of consignment note is a must object and must be there to cover under GTA service. Thus, it can be said that issuance of consignment note is a mandatory requirement for a supplier of service to be considered as GTA. If such consignment note is not issued, if in case there is no issue of consignment note, the service provided will not become in the ambit of GTA. So consignment note, issue of consignment note is a mandatory requirement to be taxable as a GTA service. Now, if consignment note is issued, it indicates that the lien of goods has been transferred to the transporter, that all the risk and reward, all the risk factor with respect to goods has been transferred to good transport agency. and transporter become responsible for the goods till its safe delivery to the consignee. So what basically the consignment note do, that it transfer the completely risk of that goods for the part when it is in the travel to the transporter, and all the responsibility of the goods, its safe delivery is, he is acting as an agent. It is the only services and GTA who assumes agency function, that is being brought into the GST net. Individual truck tempo operators who issue any consignment note are not covered within the meaning of term GTA. All the agency who issue a consignment note can only come under the GTA, and other all the individual truck or tempo operator who do not issue any consignment or any document in the form of consignment note are not covered in the meaning of the term GTA. The service किसी एक ट्रक दो ट्रक तीन ट्रक है and who do not issue any consignment note, which will be covered in the serial number 18 notification 12/2017, which is exempt from GST. So this is the way that exemption of service has been granted. So what is the taxability? So before that, we have to understand what is the consignment note, which is a mandatory requirement to taxability under GTA. So what is consignment note? Let's understand. Consignment note is neither defined in the act nor in the notification, but the service tax rules has defined it in later previously. So let's understand what is the consignment note defined there. In terms of said rule, the consignment note means a document issued by a good transport agency against the receipt of the good for the purpose of transportation of goods by road in a goods carriage, which is serially numbered Is there any interruption on my part? Neha ma'am, or is
Yes.
audible?
No, because
Sir,
perfectly audible.
there is a little lag in between after every few minutes.
Okay. Now okay.
Yeah, for now it's all right. In case there's another glitch, I'll let
Please
you
let
know.
me know. Please let me know.
Sure.
Okay. So in terms of said rule, consignment note means a document issued by a good transport agency against the receipt of the goods for the purpose of transportation of goods by a road in a goods carrier, which is serially numbered and contain the name of the consignor and the consignee, registration number of the goods carriage in which the goods are transported, detail of the goods transported, detail of the place of the origin and the destination, personal liable for paying service tax, whether consignor or consignee or the good the transport agency. So this is the basic all requirements, which is any document which has such document is known as consignment note. There is no pro forma, but it is a content which is relevant for to be any document to be called as a consignment note. So this is the basic requirement to taxability under GT. Now moving forward, what will be the rate of GST under GAT? In service tax era, only the GTA services are covered under the reverse charge mechanism. Now in the GST era, they have given certain option, whether it is can be a reverse charge or a forward charge. Subject and different rates also given as per facilitation measure for the transporters. Basically, good transport agency is covered the reverse charge mechanism because it is said that the transporter are unorganized sector, so they cannot do the compliance part. So the service recipient should be held liable for all the compliances, and the tax liability is to be paid by the service recipient under reverse charge mechanism. Same under service tax also, and now under GST also. So in terms of notification of 11/2017, following entry has been provided. Services of good transport agency in relation to the transportation of goods attracts GST at the rate of 2.5% or a 6%. Identical rate in state GST. So there's two rate, basically effective rate 5% and a 12%. 5% and 12%. And what is the difference and what are the conditions attached to that rate? Let's discuss one by one. The rate of 5% is subject to condition that input tax credit charge on goods or services used for supplying the service has not been taken. So basic condition for the minimum rate, that is 5%, that input tax credit should not be taken. तो इनपुट ऑल द सर्विसेज, फॉर एग्जांपल जो आपने ट्रक परचेस किया है उसका आईटीसी, कोई गुड्स आप उस ट्रक में यूज कर रहे हैं उसका आईटीसी, और कोई और गुड्स और सर्विसेज उस सर्विसेज को रेंडर करने के लिए कर रहे हैं उसका आईटीसी, तो इन सब का आईटीसी आपको नहीं मिलेगा, देन रेट विल बी 5%. So explanation also has been provided in this notification, which said the explanation what say the credit of the input tax and goods and services used exclusively in supplying the service has not been taken. The basic condition we have discussed, that ITC is not allowed in the rate of 5%. Second, the credit of ITC of the goods and services partly used for supplying this service, partly used for supplying eligible for ITC service. So proportionately reversal has to be done as such goods or services are exempt from GST. So reversal of ITC is to be done for the GTA service proportion. Further, now the other rate, the 6% rate, what the basic condition is that the effective rate is 12%, is subject to condition that the good transport agency opting to pay central tax at the rate of 6% under this entry shall be liable to pay 6% on all services of GTA supplied by it. Further, there is no restriction on GTA from taking ITC if this option is availed. So another option which is given to the good transport agency is registered as a taxpayer, pay tax at the rate of 12%, and take complete ITC of all the goods or services used for providing GTA services. So this is the second option which is introduced in the GST era. That option has been given to a GTA agency to charge GST at the rate of 12% under forward charge and take all the input tax credit. Further, the liability to pay GST devolve on the recipient for supply by a good transport agency who has not paid the central at the rate of 6% instead of transportation of goods by road, as amended by this notification, if the recipient belong to the following category. Now, what is the this? That now 5% की जो category है जहाँ reverse charge में liability है उनको cover करता है, but who is the person liable to pay tax other than when covered the 12% effective rate. In the 12% effective rate, the liability is on the forward charge on the service provider, but under the 5% rate, liability is on the recipient if the recipients belong to the following category. First, any factory registered or governed by the Factories Act, a society registration act, any cooperative society. This is all taken from the service tax era only. Any person, the Central Goods and Service Tax Act जो registered है CGST में, any body corporate established by under any law, any partnership firm, any casual taxable person. This is the concept in GST, that is casual taxable person, where we do any work as a exhibition or for the temporary period for certain area. For example, any party from Chhattisgarh have an exhibition in the Kolkata, so he visited and taken that casual taxable person registration and do the business. It is called casual taxable person. So he has to take a registration and pay the tax in advance as a casual taxable person, and after discharging all the liability has to come out the original place. So all this case, the liability is on the recipient of service provided the transporter has opted for 5% rate. But if the operator, the GTA service provider has opted for 12% rate, then forward charge is applicable and he will be charging GST at 12%, and the person who is receiving it can take the ITC also. Thus, in case where the services of GT are availed by the above category of the person is taxable, the territory supply has to option to tax at 12%, and if the GTA does not avail the option, the liability to pay GST will fall on the recipient. So there is only two options. If above categories, 12% under forward charge, and if not, 5% under reverse charge by the service recipient. In all other cases, where the recipient do not fall in the above category, the liability will be on the service provider, that is GTA service provider. So almost all the persons are covered under that list. So we can say that if the GST rate 5% is opted by the GTA service provider, the recipient is liable to pay under reverse charge mechanism. Now let's discuss once the GTA services which are exempt, it is not liable to GST. The services by a good transport agency by way of transport in goods carriage of agriculture produce, goods where the consideration for transportation of goods of consignment transported in a single carriage does not exceed 1,500 rupees. 1500 रुपए से कम का उसका जो भाड़ा है, जो बोलते हैं सो टैक्स अमाउंट ऑफ वैल्यू the transporter is charging from the consignor or consigning. Goods where consideration charge for transportation of such goods does not exceed rupees 700. Single consignment does not exceed rupees 750. Milk, salt or food grains के transportations, organic manure. So these are the list where the exemption has been granted. GTS services अगर इनके related provide की जाती है तो there will be no liability. These are the exempt from GST. Further, apart from that, one more exemption has been granted, which is very important, that services by way of giving on hire. So if any provide services by giving on hire to a good transport agency of means of transportation of goods, that is the GTA hire a means of transportation of goods, no GST payable on such transaction. So if the GTA service provider, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इसका एग्जांपल अगर मैं लूँ, प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल, कि किसी कंपनी को जो जीटीए सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है उनको 100 गाड़ियों को लगाने का कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला, उन्होंने सर्विसेज ली, उनके पास कुछ गाड़ियां अवेलेबल नहीं थी तो उन्हें 50 गाड़ियां किसी और से हायर पे ली ताकि वो जीटीए सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर पाए. नाउ दिस ट्रांजैक्शन बिटवीन द पर्सन हु इज प्रोवाइडिंग द ट्रक्स टू द जीटीए is exempt from GST. So to goods transport means of transportation of goods, thus if GTA hire a means of transportation of goods, no GST is payable on such transaction. So services by way of giving on hire. So these are the major provisions which are covered under GTA. Now I request all the participants please raise their question and we will discuss further on this topic. One thing I just want to convey, all the participants having question, let's discuss one by one, and Ashok sir also will be answering all the questions.
I think there are a lot of questions which are being asked by the participant. Yes. I may request Rohit to take the lead and read one by one question, or I have noted down certain question, we can go one by one accordingly. So as the Rohit decide.
Sir, we can go as per your convenience. I guess we can open the chat box and go on FIFO basis, so that will be much more justified.
Yeah, please do that. In the meanwhile, just to save the time, there is one querist who has asked whether the charitable organization is also liable to pay tax under reverse charge. Yes, if that charitable organization is a supplier in GST law, even the hospitals, which may be trust or run by the society, if they are liable to pay tax under reverse charge, then they are liable to get themselves registered also, even if their supplies are not subject to GST. For example, in GST law, educational institutions and hospitals, their output services are exempted. But if they're liable to pay tax under reverse charge, wherein the GTA is also involved, then they have to get themselves registered and comply with the law. So the question which is being normally asked by the universities and the hospital, is there any way to avoid this so that we are not liable to get themselves registered? Sir, now as my learned speaker Vikas has already pointed out, from 2018, there is an option to pay tax on forward charge. So you have to find out a transporter who is liable to pay tax under forward charge. In that situation, undoubtedly, you are not liable to get yourself registered. Secondly, one thing which is very important, when I am making tax to the transporter, then only I am liable to pay tax under reverse charge. In case I am making the payment of tax to the supplier of such goods, my liability is not there to get myself registered. For example, if that hospital or educational institutions, they have engaged the transporter, they are buying certain furniture. If they say, if we will bear the incidence of tax, but this cost of freight must be added by the furniture supplier in the invoice, and I make payment of transportation charges to the supplier, then I am not liable to pay the tax, because the recipient in this case will be the supplier of furniture who is liable to pay the freight, and service recipient is the person who is liable to pay the tax. And by having these two simple formula, these educational institutions or hospitals can avoid to get themselves registered, and they keep on availing the services of GTA also. Another question which I was noting, which has been asked 2 or 3 times, and that question is, if I am opted to pay tax at forward charge from a specified date, can I issue the invoices thereafter on a concessional rate of 5%, wherein my recipient is liable to pay tax under reverse charge? I think those who have read that notification, which Vikas has demonstrated in his screen, it is very clear. Once you opt for the forward charge, then you cannot go back. And it is very simple and logical also, because of the simple reason, if I have started charging tax at 12%, then I am eligible to claim the ITC. And tomorrow I again say, I want to opt for this 5%, then how this reversal of ITC will be done will be a very tedious exercise. So the government, in their own wisdom, and rightly also, have put up this condition: once you opt to pay tax under forward charge at 12%, then you cannot go back to this 5% criteria. This is very, very important to understand. So after these 2 questions, now I'll ask Rohit to read the questions for all of us.
I just want to add, sir, one thing in this, Ashok sir.
Please.
हाँ, एक क्वेश्चन ये भी एक जो होता है इसमें कि certain persons is asking that option is available or not for 5% or 12%. For example, we have 2 service recipients. One is asking under reverse charge and other is asking 12%, and we are taking to ITC proportionately. कई इन्होंने कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछा था कि proportionality मिल सकता है क्या? तो you have very well pointed out that option only once can be exercised. Otherwise, you have to pay the tax under 12% forward charge and the 5%. No, both the simultaneous option has been provided in the law.
विकास जी, मैं इनको ये बता दूं, इनके लिए एक practical solution है मेरे पास. In case they are having the customer who intend to pay tax under reverse charge, then they also have a set of customers who want to pay tax under forward charge. They should form 2 forms. They can see 2 registration under 2 different PAN. For example, it's a partnership form with slight variation in the profit sharing ratio. You can have another form, or under a different constitution, you can have a proprietorship form. So in that form, you can start providing services at reverse charge to your client who wanted to avail that service at concessional rate of tax. And to those who want a forward charge, your existing form wherein you have opted for this, you can do those. So there is a practical suggestion for them.
Definitely. Further, one's question is asked that whether registration is requirement for transporter having turnover exceeding 40 lakhs. So there has been exemption has been granted that GTA service provider is not liable to register irrespective of its turnover unless he opt for the forward charge mechanism. So there is no. Please, Ashok sir.
विकास जी, उसमें 2 चीजें हैं. पहली चीज तो ये है कि because reverse charge is in the case of specified recipient and there is another exemption where I am not supposed to pay tax under this category when these services have been received by unregistered person.
Right.
But still, there are certain categories where transporter has to pay tax on forward charge. If he is liable to pay tax on forward charge and aggregate turnover include the exempted services also, and if the total turnover is more than the exemption limit, then you have to seek registration. Vikas ji is absolutely correct in saying so, that in case you are providing services where all your services are liable to be taxed in the reverse charge, then turnover is not an criteria. Even if you have a 20 crore turnover, you are providing to all body corporate, you are not liable to get yourself registered. But this condition is applicable only in the hands of supplier. So far as recipient of goods is concerned, everybody should take note of it, including the chartered accountants. Even if they have a turnover below the exemption limit, but they are availing the services of GTA, then they have to seek mandatory registration under Section 24. Right. To avoid that registration, I have already discussed when I was discussing in the context of hospitals and educational institutions, the same formula has to be adopted by the chartered accountant. He can say, if I am buying the furniture, I will pay tax to the supplier of furniture, not to the goods transport agency. In that case, goods transport agency is the supplier of service. The furniture seller is the recipient of service. He will have to get himself registered a reverse charge, not the chartered accountant. So this fine distinction may kindly be kept in mind.
Yes. And the reverse charge compulsory registration is there. So all the services where recipient is liable under any reverse charge category, the recipient has to take compulsory registration irrespective of the threshold, right?
Any other question? I think before they read these questions, I think Rohit is already working on it. You can look at Vikas also working on it, whatever the questions are there in the chat box. But I would like to
yes, sir. Carry on. Sir. Sorry, sir. Carry on.
I would like to clarify that there are two exemptions. One, 750 rupees, where the value of consignment is up to 750. Another is single carriage, and the exemption is up to 1500. This we need to understand because these are very important exemptions available. If I am a supplier of goods in Delhi, Sadar Bazaar, and I have to send my goods to a Lucknow dealer, and then the transportation charges are less than 750, there is no doubt I am not liable to pay any tax. But in case I try to be smart and I bifurcate this material to be supplied to the Lucknow supplier in 3 portions and got 3 consignment issued in favor of the same person, then the exemption is not available because this exemption is available with reference to the recipient. In that case, that recipient is having 3 consignments coming in 1 lorry. So the aggregate of that will be taken into consideration. If the aggregate value of all the 3 consignments exceeds 750, then you cannot avail this exemption. So far as that exemption of 1500 is concerned, that is in a single carriage wherein the transportation of goods is being done on behalf of only one client. And if the total freight of that lorry is less than 1500, then you are eligible to avail this exemption. So to avail this exemption, though these exemptions are there since 1st January 2005, it is almost 16 years it has been passed, but still people ask me this question, how to avail this exemption. So I thought I must clarify it, because in spite of this service being into tax by service tax and now GST, almost on a similar platform, almost on the similar parameters and the definitions, except that in GST the option of forward charge has been given. Otherwise, the law is absolutely same.
So one question is there. What is beneficial for GTA, reverse or forward charge? I just want to answer that it is completely dependent on the service provider, that is GTA service provider. अगर आप रेगुलरली आपका ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सामने वाला जो आपका आपका रेगुलरली आप कुछ ट्रक्स परचेस करते हैं और उसमें कंप्लीटली आईटीसी आपको मिलता रहता है रेगुलरली, तो इट इज एडवाइजेबल कि फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में ही आप रजिस्टर्ड करें। लेकिन अगर आपका फ्रीक्वेंसी नहीं है और कोई आईटीसी आपको नहीं मिलता है, तो इट इज एडवाइजेबल टू गो फॉर द रिवर्स चार्ज वेयर कंपनी विल फिल द आईटीसी एंड द रिवर्स चार्ज एंड टेक द आईटीसी। सर इसमें आप रिमार्क्स प्लीज।
देखिए, ये एक बड़ा क्रिटिकल सा सिचुएशन है। इस पे आपका नहीं, रिसिपिएंट के ऊपर भी बेस करता है, क्योंकि इट अफेक्ट्स योर अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ टैक्स क्रेडिट। काइंडली अप्रिशिएट, इफ आई एम ए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन wherein I am receiving services from transporter and I have to pay tax under reverse charge, then that value of reverse charge is being calculated as exempted service in terms of section 17(3), and I have to reverse the common credit by treating these services as exempt. Whereas certain commercial organization where the credit is not an issue, their output tax liability is huge. They don't want to get involved into this reverse charge mechanism. So in case you are having a client, those who are interested in getting the invoices only under forward charge, so that they need not have to comply with the condition of reversal of credit, or their cash is not an issue for them because they had a huge liability and the credit is absorbed in discharging the liability, then you have no option. So sometimes you have to look at the financial angle if you had the option, but if your clients are such and you cannot dictate to them, then you have to choose the option according to the client wishes. If, assuming now you have been given an option, you are master and you had a choice, then my suggestion will be, you have to look at the credit quantum, which Vikas has very aptly stated. Either you are taking the lorries on hire, which is already exempted, then there is no question of any ITC without. If you are doing your business by buying your own lorries, then the credit will be very huge on those lorries. So we'll suggest in that case, forward charge will be certainly beneficial. But depending upon the facts and circumstances, no one single formula can be given wherein this solution can be found out.
Exactly, sir. सर इसमें एक प्रैक्टिकल में एक और प्रॉब्लम आती है, वो डिस्कस करता हूँ। एक GSTR 1 और GSTR 3B में किस तरीके से इसको रिपोर्टिंग करना है, ये भी एक प्रैक्टिकल चैलेंज है, कंसिडरिंग द लिमिटेशन ऑफ GSTR 3B. So for example कि A is a GTA service provider and B is the company who is receiving services from A. Now how A will report in his GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B considering the limitation which is on the portal. Like GSTR 1 जो है उसमें एक ट्रांजेक्शन है कि this is a B2B supply and you have to take the reverse charge mechanism and 5% reverse charge mechanism तरीके से put up करते हैं. But there is a reverse in the GSTR 3B. There is no option where you have to show that GTA service जहाँ recipient को reverse charge pay करना है, there is no option given in the GSTR 3B. So what we have suggested previously, that it can be only displayed on the exempt, nil rated other supply, which is option given under the GSTR 3B. But now once more suggestion what I can do is, for example कि GSTR 3B it is a taxable supply, neither exempt supply, not a nil rated supply. It is a taxable supply, but only liability has been considered on the reverse charge basis. So what I suggest that in GSTR 3B, what you do, put the taxable value in the taxable supply column, and no GST amount should be quoted in the tax amount. So this is the advisable solution, because it is a very challenging, because what we see that if you quote the GSTR 1 under reverse charge and liability and GSTR 3 under exempt, there is a mismatch option and the department will issue a notice that you have the liability and you are not discharging the liability. तो मिसमैच की प्रॉब्लम जो है, तो GSTR 3B में एडवाइजेबल रहेगा कि जैसे ही आप GSTR 1 में किसी B2B क्लाइंट को रिपोर्ट करते हैं तो RCM टिक करके उसकी रिपोर्टिंग करें, और GSTR 3B में कोशिश करें कि वो टैक्सेबल सप्लाई में डाले और उनकी टैक्स की वैल्यू ना डाले, तो कि इट इज टैक्सेबल अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज एंड GSTR 3B हैज नो ऑप्शन टू रिपोर्ट सर्विसेज वेयर रिसिपिएंट इज लायबल. एंड वहां पर जो ऑप्शन बस ये है कि जहां पर आप कोई सर्विसेज रिसीव करते हैं और वो रिवर्स चार्ज में पेबल है. सर
Absolutely fine. So I don't deal in compliance and I do file the returns. I think Vikas has already answered this. We can take LIFO method, though desirable is FIFO because I have just opened the chat box. So the first question comes: truck drivers who owns only one truck using his vehicle in mining area where freight is less than 750 per trip, whether RCM will be payable by the service receiver. First of all, is not issuing the consignment note, and secondly, the freight in a single lorry is less than 1500, no question of any GST. Then it says, I am a builder. I have a project in which some units are bungalows and some are plot. While receiving advance against plot, which is non-GST, whether I have to show the figure in 3B column or we have to show when sale is booked against the plot, because there is no provision in GST 120. Sir, we are discussing transport of goods by road, but in any case, you have asked for this. I am answering it. But please, my request to all the attendant, if you ask the question, which is the topic of the day, that will be a better option. So far as this part is concerned, plot, according to my understanding, it is not subject to tax at all. But once you are registered in GST, then you have to show your total turnover and the exemption has to be cleared. So accordingly, you have to show it. Then comes, and regarding exemption, where a means of transport is provided in hire, what if control is also transferred? Okay, whether the effective control and possession is being given to the lessee or not is an issue prior to GST era, because in prior to GST era, if you look at Article 360(29) capital A, which deals with the enlarged definition of sale after 46th Constitutional Amendment, when effective control and possession was being given, it was being considered as a sale, which can be taxed only by the state. So the center wants to tax where effective control and possession is not being passed on, because it was a lacuna in the law which is being exploited by the professionals and the businessmen to avoid payment of tax. They used to draft an agreement wherein there have been certain conditions being put up. For example, a very important case is Rashtriya Ispat Nigam Limited, wherein they are given a machinery to be used only in that particular contract. So the government, the Supreme Court held that effective control and possession is not there. So it is not a deemed sale, not liable to VAT. Taking clue from there, the Service Tax Department drafted their definition of supply of tangible goods in such a manner that if effective control and possession is not being parted, then it will be subject to service tax. So that means after 2008, when this supply of tangible goods service being introduced, and this section, according to my memory, was 65 within bracket 105 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐬𝐏𝐻𝐸. So if that being the scenario, then you have to pay one tax, either VAT or service tax. But once it comes to GST, there is no such condition. Leasing of vehicle, whether it is effective control and possession is being parted or not, it doesn't make any difference. It is subject to tax. So far as your question is concerned, exemption where a means of transport is provided in hire, if it is being given to GTA, you're squarely covered in the exemption, no GST. You need not look at that, whether the control is being passed on to the lessee or not. It is not a condition. You can simply claim the exemption if you are giving a means of transportation of goods to GTA. You are not liable to pay tax, irrespective of the fact whether effective control and possession is being parted or not parted. How we treat freight? Yes, Vikas, do you want to say something?
Yeah, each question is, sir, if any small transporter who is registered in GST hire a truck to GTA and charges GST, the GTA registered as GST forward charge paying 12% pay the small transporter in full and take ITC. What will be the consequences? जो एक क्वेश्चन में समझ पा रहा हूँ इसमें,
क्वेश्चन मेरे को सामने नहीं है, बट अगर आपने पढ़ा है तो आप बताएं, आंसर दे, मैं देखता हूँ.
हाँ, यस, एक प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चन है सर. जैसे किसी पर्सन है जिसके पास जिसने ट्रक्स परचेस किया है. नाउ ही इज प्रोवाइडिंग दैट ट्रक्स ऑन हायर टू सर्टेन पर्सन मिस्टर बी on hire, which is exempt transaction, but the person A want to transfer the ITC So he charges the GST at the rate of 18% or 12%, the case may be, to that B party, who's a GTA service provider, and the GTA service provider is providing services to C. So in my case, that is the exempt supply, there cannot be a chargeability of tax in that case. So can you please express your views on that?
Yeah, positively. We have seen a lot more
Right.
these kind of disputes in pre-GST era. Principles are very common.
Right.
People want to transfer the ITC, they were claimed the truck and they are charging GST on the charges which are not subject to GST,
Right.
so that they can absorb the ITC,
Right.
and the transaction cost can be reduced.
Right.
Let me tell you, so far as credit is concerned, in the hands of recipient, there is no challenge because law is absolutely settled. You cannot challenge the classification or the taxability in the hands of the recipient because the government has collected the tax, so they are duty bound to give the credit also.
Input tax.
So far as recipient is concerned, he is absolutely not a problem. Now the question is the supplier, whether he is eligible to claim the supply. Then we have to go to section 16(1) and the language which says you are eligible for the credit in case you are providing supplies. And then section 72 says in the course of furtherance of business, the very wide one, there's no doubt eligibility will come. Then 17(2) says in case you are providing services for business and other than business, 17(1), and 72 says if you are providing taxable and exempted services. Then the question comes, if it is an exempted service and the truck is being exclusively used for the provision of such service, are you entitled for the credit? So the problem can be in the hands of the supplier, but so far as recipient of service is concerned, absolutely no problem because it is a settled law. Number of Supreme Court judgments are there which says classification and taxability cannot be challenged in the hands of the recipient.
Very well answered. Is there any other question?
So many questions are there. Sir, if an individual has 2-3 trucks and his gross receipt from freight is more than 20 lakh, is he required registration under GST? If not, why further if he has only 2 lakh from retail trading along with above, what will be the impact of your answer? Kindly appreciate registration is being governed under section 22. If you are providing taxable services and your aggregate turnover is more than the exemption limit, you are liable to seek registration. Section 24 talk about certain situation where irrespective of the turnover, you are mandatorily required to be registered. We should not forget under section 25, we can get registered on voluntarily basis also. For example, I am a dealer of industrial chemical. If I don't get registered, I am not able to issue the tax invoice. So my factory wala who wants a tax invoice, he will never buy it from me. So there is an option of voluntary registration also. Now, aggregate turnover includes not only taxable supply, but also exempted supply. So even if you are providing exempted supply for the purpose of recording the revenue, you're issuing an invoice. If exempted invoice plus some taxable entity, for example, this trading of goods, if it is 2 lakh rupees and it is subject to tax, then goods and services both combined, if the limit is let us say 40 lakh and your turnover including the hiring charges which is exempt and 2 lakh trading which is taxable exceeds the taxable quantum, you are duty bound to get yourself registered. In case you fail to get yourself registered, then there are double jeopardy. You are a taxable person. You will be liable to pay tax on all the supplies made by you, but at the same time, you will not be eligible to claim the ITC. So kindly look at it under a PAN. I'm again answering this very important question. Under a PAN, if I am doing trading, also providing services, I have to go to the definition of aggregate turnover, which includes taxable supplies, which includes supplies made between the distinct persons under the same PAN. Aggregate turnover may be consisting of primarily of exempted supplies, doesn't make a difference. Even if some portion of it is subject to GST, then aggregate turnover, if exceeds the taxable quantum, you are duty bound to seek registration.
Right.
So there are so many messages.
Even the any part of the even at 100 rupees taxable supply is there, we have to look the aggregate turnover part. If the aggregate turnover cross the threshold limit, you have to compulsory take the registration irrespective of the quantum of the taxable portion.
Now I'm again going a LIFO method, which may not be logical, but it's easier for me. In transport industry, old vehicle, old tires, scrap material, etc., on which no ITC has been taken or disposed of after completion of their useful life. As a truck owner disposing of these goods, am I required to pay GST considering that ITC has not been taken? 100% you are liable to pay the tax. Claim of credit is a different ball game. We have to consider that calculation of output tax liability is one aspect of GST. Claim of tax credit is another aspect, and then payment of tax with reference to section 41 and 49, that is another segment, another aspect of GST. So if any truck owner is disposing of these goods, then it is taxable supply, he is supposed to charge the tax. Then the exemption which is available to him, that in case his whole supplies are subject to reverse charge mechanism, that condition will not get satisfied and you have to seek registration positively.
Sir, one practical question I just wanted to.
If you talk, just a minute,
Yes,
Kasi,
yes.
because he says whether it will be owned to double. So double taxation is the order of the day. If in a transaction, forget about tax at two places. I'll give you a couple of examples to understand this because it is a slightly complicated issue. Today, if I have given my premises on rent, which is commercial, am I paying income tax on that? Yes. But same supply is subject to GST also. Both are being collected by the central government. Now, of course, the state government has also become partner in GST, but then it is a double taxation. Double taxation is never illegal, provided in a transaction there are taxable events and all the definitions are being satisfied. For example, when I was talking about this rental income, it falls in the definition of income, so income tax is leviable. It falls in the definition of service. Now, in case you look at it, kindly consider, once you are importing certain material from another country, you are paying custom duty on that. When you file bill of entry for home consumption, you will be paid, you are liable to pay custom duty. On that custom duty, I am again liable to pay IGST also. So double taxation is not an issue. Now look at cars. You pay GST, which has subsumed excise, CST, VAT, but what about registration and road tax? So that is another levy, and this receipt also satisfies that parameter. That is again a double taxation. You look at property, you have paid income tax, you have paid GST, but still you are liable to pay municipal taxes on that property because that is for a different purpose. That is for the use of amenities being provided and the infrastructure created by the civil authorities. So kindly appreciate, double taxation is not a good principle to determine. It may be, you can say it is unjustifiable, that's a different issue. But once there are two taxable events, you're liable to pay the tax.
Even 17.5 blockage of ITC is also one element of double taxation.
Sir, tax credit is a concession. Of course, there are a number of Supreme Court judgments, including 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐬𝐏𝐚𝐬𝐬𝐏𝐷𝐬𝐶 Limited, which says it is indefeasible. It is my right. And some even I have seen in the writ, they are saying it is a asset under Article 300 capital A of the Constitution. Also, you cannot deprive me of that right. But if you look at the latest Supreme Court judgment, I'm forgetting the name, wherein they have very clearly stated, it is a benefit subject to conditions. It is for the government to decide what kind of benefit has to be given to you. they can stop the tax credit. Accordingly, they can adjust the output tax rate also. Is there any logic? You pay 3% tax on gold biscuit and you pay 12% on the biscuit which are liable to be consumed by a poor man? Because the value addition is very high, huge. So logic doesn't go in taxation law. It is the equity and logic have no place in taxation law. So kindly appreciate that proposition and then you'll be able to convince yourself, yes, these answers are correct.
Sir, one question is there that if the person, sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. If the service or under GTS service, it is which is covered the reverse charge, and but I want to pay a 5% at 5%. Few of the clients say that 5% the forward charge they want to pay. So is this possible? So in my view, it is not suggestible to, because reverse charge already the services has been covered under reverse charge. Please share your views.
I'll give you another example. First of all, I ask you a counter question, then you will appreciate this. You are an employee, your employer is supposed to deduct TDS. Now you say,
right,
sir, inadvertently, I have paid the advance tax, which is good enough to meet my total tax liability. You don't deduct TDS.
Right. Right.
The government has to enact the laws and then they are supposed to administer it also. So once the responsibility has been fixed on the recipient, then the recipient is supposed to discharge. If the supplier has paid the tax, yes, first of all, we all need to understand, because we are all professionals, that up to tribunal, they are all statutory courts. High Court and Supreme Court are constitutional court. So these principle of equity, that there is a double taxation, supplier has paid, I have a clinching evidence, supplier is a government company, I have taken the services from the government company, etc. So all those arguments can be given in the High Court. But up to tribunal, nobody will give you any relief. We have seen in practical life, there are number of situations which are revenue neutral. But in the absence of any provision in the law, the benefit is not being extended. I'll tell you a very small example. Suppose you're liable to pay tax on the reverse charge, 100 rupees, and that amount is available as a credit. In a tax period, your liability was 1,000. 100 rupees, 300 is the other credit available. You have paid 700 to the government. And after that, the government serves you a show cause notice. This liability of 100 rupees is not being paid. Yes, sir, it is only a question of challan. If I would have paid 100 rupees, that would have been available as a credit. So one challan would have been for 100 rupees in cash, another for 600 rupees. Now I have paid only 700. But even in those cases, I do agree all the cases in one stand says there is no mala fide intention, so extended period and penalty cannot be levied. But demand for the normal period is being confirmed, which is being, wherever you have got the relief, it is only from the High Court or the Supreme Court. So even revenue neutrality till tribunal doesn't stand, and taking that kind of a risk is not at all advisable.
Right.
Now there is another question which I could see. If you want, permit me, I can read it. Whether intermediary and ancillary services such as loading, unloading, packing, unpacking, temporary warehousing provided in relation to transport of goods by road as part of GTS service being a composition. Certainly, there is already a circular by the department. In service tax era, the name of the circular was 104. And in GST era, I don't remember the number, but similar kind of circular has been issued. If I am charging transportation of goods from Delhi to Kerala, 500 rupees, subject to reverse charge at 5%, then it includes transshipment from Delhi to Kerala. And in case it is a perishable goods and we are using the service of cold storage, that will also form part of that. So it is a composite supply, absolutely correctly understood, liable to be taxed, concessional rate or full rate, depending upon where the value of transportation is being taxed. Similar treatment will be given to these charges also. When the reversal of common credit situation arises, sir, whenever you are providing services or making supplies of goods, which are for other than business or exempted, then only the reversal question will come into picture. Section 16 talk about the eligibility of credit. Then section 17(1) talk about a situation where you have to reverse the credit when you are using those supplies for business and other than business purpose. 17(2) deals with the situation where you are providing exempted taxable supply. So any of these things when happen, then only the reversal will arise. For example, in the case of a chartered accountant who is providing all CA services, the question of common credit reversal shall not arise. But yes, if you are using telephone or laptop or mobile, which can be subject to personal use. So in those cases also, the question comes because you're using those equipment wherein the incidence of tax, payment, etc. has been made from the firm and full credit has been availed. But personal use of that mobile cannot be ruled out. So you are using that asset for other than business purpose. Even then, you have to reverse the credit.
Right. So one question I just want to read.
Please.
If a GST registered transporter has two customers with him, C1 and C2, he has 10 trucks, out of which he uses 8 for customer C1 and issue a consignment note, and uses 2 trucks for customer but does not issue a consignment note. Can he use ITC of the 2 trucks which is used for the giving services to C2, or where he does not issue the consignment note? Question crux whether the GTA status has to be seen on transaction or customer wise, or if a person has issued one single consignment note, will be classified as GTA for all his transportation service, even where he does not issue a consignment note.
First of all, let me make it clear, by not issuing a consignment note, but giving another document, जिसको आप कहते हैं पहुंच का document है, या ये receipt है, that can also be treated as consignment note. So your nature of service will be determined by the nature of transaction. If your nature of transaction is transportation of goods by road, you're acting as an agency, then you're liable to pay the tax. The question of credit shall arise only when you are discharging liability under forward charge.
Right.
If you are charging tax under reverse charge at a concessional rate of 5%, please forget about the input tax credit. You are not at all eligible. So once you are issuing a consignment note to X number of customers, and then those customers are liable to pay tax under reverse charge at concessional rate of 5%, your eligibility to ITC will go.
There is no optional given on the basis of client basis. It is a PAN number basis option.
I have already made it clear. Once again, I am saying if you are charging tax at 12% under forward charge, from that day onwards, you are not permitting to provide services at concessional rate under reverse charge mechanism.
Right. How we deal with the payment of GST on forward, freight outward on exports?
देखिए, so far as services of freight on export is concerned, it can be availed from various service providers under various commercial arrangement. I may engage a person who is a freight forwarder in India to take the material from my factory to the destination place in USA. Then in turn, he is appointing someone in USA to provide overseas services. But you are making one single payment to that freight forward. So in that case, because the goods are moving outside India and the place of supply is the place where the goods are destined, the whole consideration may not be subject to tax. But in a situation where you are engaging one person to provide you transport of goods by road, and then the goods are being given to Delhi freight forwarder, then Delhi freight forwarder is further taking it to the USA. Now, first supply is between you and the transporter who is providing services within India, certainly subject to tax under reverse charge if these services have been provided by the GTA. Then that freight forwarder who's taking your goods to overseas, he may be charging you an X amount, which may not be subject to tax. Now, once we have split up this transaction from one single transaction to two transactions, a part of it has become taxable. So to answer your query, we need to understand the facts very carefully. What are the services which has been given to one particular person? And then if it is a composite supply, for example, I can give a work of packing also to the same person who is taking the goods to the overseas. So he is a packer as well as a cargo handling agent, as well as a transporter. So depending upon how the consideration is being charged, whether these are naturally bundled or not, whether it is a composite supply or mixed supply, so the taxability will be determined accordingly. Why I'm saying so? Because in real practice, we have seen there are a lot more litigation on this issue. So be careful. You have to structure your transaction in such a manner that it has a minimal tax liability. Take the advice, but where your client has already undertaken these activities, please analyze them according to the provisions of law and accordingly advise them. There is no single formula or a stick with which all these export related freight issues can be handled. Is next to impossible.
Sir, I just want to share one practical question. For example, I have received the services in the month of April, which is subject to reverse charge on my hands, and I was discharging this liability in GST 3B in the month of May. So, which period where I can take the input tax credit of this reverse charge liability which we have paid?
Generally, only in the month of May. Answer is very clear and very short and crisp. Simply because under reverse charge, your eligibility of the credit will come only when you have discharged the liability on that. So you can claim credit only in the month of May.
We can say that it's only in the month of May where the return is filed in the June, right?
Once you make the payment of tax, you are eligible for the credit.
Right.
So your eligibility comes in May. Now you're filing the return in June. So in case you take a stand that the amount paid in cash ledger is not a discharge of liability, or the government takes a stand only when it is being appropriated in 3B, then only will give you the credit. So depending upon the credit will be available in the month of March. So depending upon that situation, we will be able to pay the interest. Is one question, circular number 164/20/2021 has para 8, which talks about renting of vehicle to state transport undertaking and local authorities. But in the para 8.4 circular state, the expression giving and hire in serial number 22 of the notification number 12/2017 includes renting of vehicle. Serial number 22 notification or has two parts, first for state transport undertaking, second for GTA. Will the clarification that rental will be included in hiring be also be applicable for GTA, as GTA is also? So GTA entry is entirely different. I am having the book with me. In case you want, I can read the entry, and that entry is very clear. Entry number 22 has different segment. If you look at this entry number 22, then A says to a state transport undertaking, which I am not supposed to read when I am dealing with the GTA. Then there is double A to a local authority with regard to electrically operated vehicle. I am not supposed to read this also. I come to B. It is with effect from 1st July 2017. It clearly says to a goods transport agency, a means of transport of goods. Yahan vehicle nahi hai. This entry is very clear. It says to a goods transport agency, a means of transport of goods. With effect from 25th, they said, now it is motor vehicle for transport of student, faculty and staff to a person providing service of transportation of student, faculty and staff to an educational institution. So that is also not related to GTA. So the relevant entry is B. So we have to read each part of this exemption entry 22 independently and apply accordingly. Am I clear? Chaliye sir. Next. Sir, a GTA obtained registration for one vertical, rail, cargo, renting, warehousing, for which tax need to be paid, while not obtaining registration for another vertical, GTA under RCM on which there is vertical GTA under RCM on which there is no tax liability.
No,
It is
absolutely.
not your seeking of registration. Under the law, if you are liable to pay the tax, then you are a taxable person. Either you seek registration or not. You have to face the consequences once the department comes to know that you are providing services which are taxable without seeking registration. So all the consequences, including penalty, tax, interest, prosecution, will follow.
Basically, registration can be done on the basis of PAN number, aggregate turnover, not the GST number.
How we deal with payment of GST on freight outward and export? I have already answered this.
Right.
Then comes a question. Intermediary, I think I have answered this also. Question in crux, whether GTA status has to be seen on transaction of customer wise, or if a person has issued even one single consignment note, will he be classified as GTA for all his transactions? No. I can provide number of services under one PAN, and forget about PAN in case under a PAN I have taken distinct registration in various states. So in those numbers also, which are being considered as distinct person, I can provide various services. As a chartered accountant, you can provide auditing services, taxation services, consultancy services, GST services, project report, management consultancy, and whatnot. Same is the case with the GTA. In case is acting as GTA in one transaction, he will be treated as GTA for that transaction. In case he is owning a truck and given that truck on hire, so in that transaction, he will be treated as leasing of truck. And in third transaction, he is providing a cargo handling service or packing service. So he will be treated as providing a packing service. Issuance of one consignment note cannot determine the taxability of other transaction, which has to be considered independently. I am registered dealer under GST and received goods and pay freight charges, including 5% GST. It covers reverse charge in this case. As I told you, once again, I'll reiterate for the sake of clarification. If I am making payment to the supplier of goods, I am not liable to pay tax under reverse charge. In that case, supplier of service is transporter. Supplier of goods is the service recipient who is liable to make the payment, and the liability has been fastened on the person who is liable to make the payment, service recipient, that is the supplier of goods. Again, I'll explain it as a chartered accountant. If your turnover is less than the exemption limit and you're buying certain furniture on which you're paying the freight charges, in order to avoid the registration, in case you make this payment to the GTA, you have to get yourself registered even if your turnover is less than the exemption limit. So in order to avoid that, as I was suggesting you, you can say to the furniture supplier, I am willing to bear the incidence of freight. Your furniture cost is 50,000. You charge 2,000 rupees as freight from me. I'll make 52,000 to you. And then on that freight charges, reverse charge mechanism payment has to be made by the supplier of furniture, not by you. So in this case, because you are not a service recipient making payment to the GTA, you are making payment to the supplier of goods, there is no issue of any reverse charge liability. So kindly take note of this very carefully. So a registered dealer who is trading goods, in case his turnover is less than 40 lakh and is taking a precaution, he is not making payment to the GTA, he is making payment to the supplier of goods. He need not seek registration because his limit is below taxable, and it is applicable to chartered accountant also. I am repeating time and again. When a GTA hires a truck with driver from another GST registered entity for the purpose of providing goods transport service to a registered recipient, whether tax credit is available to the GTA on the GST paid by him to the owner. Okay, GTA को credit मिलने के लिए is just like a service provider whose services are liable to be taxed under reverse charge. That gentleman, in case is providing services, charging tax at concessional rate, forget about the payment of GST. In case he is discharging the liability under forward charge, from that date onwards, he cannot provide service under reverse charge. In such situation, undoubtedly, he can claim the credit subject to the fulfillment of condition of section 16 of CGST Act. Another question. If a service provided by a GTA to another GTA, GST is applicable. First of all, is it practically possible? Because in a supply of provision of service of transportation goods by road, there can be only one consignment. If I have issued the consignment note from Delhi to Calcutta, nobody else can do it. So he's a goods transport operator who's providing service to me. And depending upon my arrangement with him, whether he's covered under any exemption or not, for example, he's providing me a truck. Certainly, whatever consideration he's charging is not supposed to pay the tax because it's being covered under exemption until number 21 or 22, sorry. If a service provided by GTA to another GTA, I've all done, you like to know.
No.
Option from 5% concession rate to 12% forward charge to be exercised once in lifetime, or option to be exercised every year. In my humble understanding, it is every year. You can opt for this, and again you can go for this reverse charge.
Yes, sir. Yeah, financial year wise, right?
Sir, client has taken ITC on ocean freight on imported goods. Can he claim refund on the basis of Mohit Mineral case? Mohit Mineral case is pending before the Honorable Apex Court and the judgment is awaited. As far as Gujarat High Court is concerned, they have said it to be ultra virus only on the premise that only the provider or the recipient can pay the tax. If a person who is overseas has engaged another person who is overseas to provide the services, then unlike service tax where the revenue was having a power to name even a third person to discharge the liability, that power is not there now. Kindly appreciate, if your client has been made as a service recipient as well as importer, then Mohit Mineral will not be applicable. Understand the facts of your case. Don't go by the title of Mohit Mineral only. If you have engaged some foreign agency and you are importing the goods, you are making payment to that foreign agency and you are liable to make the payment, then kindly appreciate this Mohit Mineral is not applicable to you. Mohit Mineral is applicable when the exporter of goods overseas has engaged some overseas agency and you are only an importer, and his obligation is to provide you delivery at your doorstep. In that case, you are not a recipient because you are not supposed to make the payment. So Mohit Mineral has not got a universal acceptability. It is there by Gujarat High Court in specified set of facts. If those facts are similar, please, then only you can take a chance. Now there's another one message. Where is the option in GST portal to avail or relinquish the option to pay tax? Sir, I have never seen GST portal, because in case you can know, because I only engage myself into consultancy and litigation. Like compliance part is looked after by another team. So Vikas, in case you can answer this.
Yes, yeah, there is no such option in the portal, but you can avail it by the financial year wise.
So is there any other question? You can do one new message. Yes. I have already answered.
Yes, already answered.
He will the clarification that rental will be included in hiring will also be applicable for GTA. GTA is also. I have already answered this. Now you are asking me further questions, so I need to understand the facts very clearly. I think that will not be appropriate to answer once again. I have told you the principles which will be applicable. In your facts, if there is something different, again I am repeating, my understanding is entry number 22 has various limits. One is state transport undertaking, then there is service by teachers, etc. So I am being covered in clause B. There is clause A, then AA, then B. All these clauses are to be read independently. So far as GTA is concerned, he is not liable to pay any tax if he is receiving a vehicle or for transportation of goods. Not even vehicle, means of transport for goods, which is very wide. So it has to be read independently, irrespective of whatever has been stated, AA, AA, or C.
I think all the questions has been answered.
We can go to the organizers.
Right.
Let us see if Rohit is there. In case you can see certain question which has not been answered or escaped our notice, you can read those questions, we will answer it. And in case everything has been answered and there are no fresh questions, then over to you.
Okay, so I guess most of the questions are answered, but I have received a message from Mr. Bhaskar. He said, can you please check my question in the box? Bhaskar sir, if you can just send your question back again, that will be great, because there are so many questions, it will take us time to figure it out.
I am registered dealer under GST and I am a registered dealer under GST and received goods and pay freight charging including 5% GST. If cover reverse charge. Again, my answer will be the same. If you are making payment to the supplier of goods, you are not being covered. But in case you are making payment to the goods transport agency, certainly you are being covered under reverse charge.
Right.
After a very long time seeing Guruji, thank God. 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐬𝐏𝐸, I keep on addressing seminar, but of course you cannot be available everywhere. I cannot be omnipresent also. Anyway, same here. Thanks for attending my seminar. So he is a GST official from South.
It's notification 11/2017, entry number, rental services of transport vehicle with or without operator 18%. Will GST apply if vehicle owner give his truck or rental to GTA? Note hire but not rental.
Let me explain this. Entry number notification number 11 deal with the rate of tax. There is a different rate of tax when you give transportation means to carry passengers with driver or without driver. So this rate notification has applicability there. For example, there is a company like Rev, wherein the vehicles are being given at your doorstep and the cost of diesel is also being borne by you. So that is being treated as a supply of tangible goods and liable to be taxed. Similar rate at which the vehicles are there. But in case you are not, you are giving your driver, then the vehicle is being considered with you and you are providing hiring services of vehicle, which is liable to be taxed at 18%. So you have to look at the facts of each case and then you have to apply. And believe me, there is already an investigation going by DGGI in all those cases where both these services are being provided. So be careful, read the terms of the contract, etc. very carefully and accordingly decide the rate of tax. So this 11 is not with regard to the exemption. What we are talking about 5 years below the line was that in 12/2017, there is an exemption in entry number 22, wherein a goods transport agency, if they are taking a means of transportation of goods on hire, no tax is payable because that is exempted. That is notification number 12. So now, according to my humble understanding, there is no difference between rental and hiring. Both are synonymous.
Yes.
Sir, if we are making payment of 10% under RCM, can we claim ITC? Yes. Kindly appreciate. The bar of not claiming the ITC is only in the hands of provider of service. So far as recipient is concerned, whatever tax he has paid, if he qualifies to claim that tax as credit in terms of sections 16 to 21 in chapter 5 of CGST Act, he will get. To cut short and giving a answer in non-technical terms, even if you are paying tax at 5%, certainly you are liable to get the credit.
This is the question already answered. Can we take the benefit of same month in which or reverse charge paid? Sir has already answered that if the
Credit will be available only in the month when the payment of tax is being paid.
done. Yes, done.
Without payment, in case you are having an invoice and you are liable to pay tax under reverse charge, either it is a GTA bill or it is a bill of the advocate or it is any other service, you cannot claim the credit without making payment of tax under reverse charge.
Rohit ji, sir, I think all the questions have been answered.
Yes, I was going through questions itself. So I think all the questions are answered. So Vikas sir, if you have anything to deliberate, then you can go ahead with that. Or if you think all the concepts have been already covered, then we can go by that way as well. So up to you.
I just want to confirm that yesterday the Raipur branch managing committee election has been conducted, and I am one of the opted member of the managing committee, and there is one program has been scheduled by them on 6:35. If you permit me, I can.
Okay, so
Ashok sir, very thankful and good to be a part of a program with you, and I just want that you must have. I request you to please visit the Raipur, Chhattisgarh for the deliberation as and when comfortable.
Vikas, you must be knowing I have visited Raipur a couple of times. I have
Right,
addressed a number of times in services. Because of the last 2 years, I am not moving anywhere and physical programs are not being taken. But anyway, now the things are becoming normal. Whenever there is an opportunity, I'll certainly come and see you in Raipur.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
okay, so thank you so much, Vikas ji, and obviously thank you so much, Ashok ji, for such insightful session. Obviously, this has been one of the most interactive session I have seen. Both our faculties have been justifying their talent and have been answering all the questions simultaneously. So heads off to both of you. We guys have maintained attendance of almost 90 to 100% throughout the session. So it says that this session has been very much interactive and engaging. So all because of your love and support, we promise to keep coming with such interesting topics for your learning and growth. So to all the participants who have missed today's session, you can go and visit on our Optotax YouTube channel. So don't forget to hit the bell icon and also please subscribe because you don't want to miss our regular updates. So thank you so much once again for joining us. Thank you so much, faculties. Please stay connected. Keep using Optotax. Good night. Be safe. Thank you.